Let's talk about money.
I got that money.
Money, 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 money.
The most. I get real weird about money talk. Do you, Tony?
Kind of, but in this instance, we never viewed it as money. So
Mm,
that's what I want to talk about today.
interesting. One thing I would like to say right out in the front is being poor is so stressful. It's such a crazy added weight of stress to life.
Poverty has a lot
Um,
of
uh,
harmful effects, as far
uh,
as your health, as far as your nutrition, as far as all these things like
indirect consequences,
yeah,
maybe? Is that what
yeah, yes, consequences. And it's very sad. So we're going to talk about all these things today, guys. So buckle in.
in the context of the church.
In the context of the church, I just want to, put it out there that this was my experience, personal experience, and I don't claim to say that this is, I don't know. I just want to say that this is my personal experience and what I witnessed, okay, personally.
Right.
So I just want to let you guys know um, that I don't even really know how to begin this. So you end up, when you are in the church, you end up giving a lot of money to the church, whether it be through the service time, through tithe and offering, or through cooking or doing any type of church activity or preaching activity or whatever. You give a lot of money to the church over your time there. However, that's why a lot of people, like from the outside, they look in and they say, how could you give so much money to the church? How could you give, hundreds of thousands of dollars in some cases? And in other churches, Scientology, people give millions, And so people say, how can you do that? And it's like, it's the whole indoctrination thing and how they build you up before you're even putting your hand in your wallet. Do you know what I mean? Like they prepare you with Bible studies beforehand. And so that's what I want people to understand is that it's a complicated process and a complicated tactic um, that is used for a long time before you're even thinking about giving them money. So it's not like it's presented as like, oh, come to my church, get baptized and give money. It's like study about why this money is a holy material that you can use to be blessed by God.
Right.
Does that make sense? So what they would do is you would get baptized and then, that's the first step and then you would do your studies. And then after, this is one of the most important Bible studies is about tithe and offering. So they talk about how tithe is used as a holy material. Okay, this is how it's presented as a holy material. They don't call it money in the church. Okay, it's holy material. Holy, it's holy, and it's something that is used in service to worship God. If you are not having your tithe and offering, then you are not participating in worshiping God. Worshiping God is like an active participation. It's not just something that you just go to church and sit. Like you need to actively be worshiping God. And so if you're not presenting your tithe and offering before God, then you're not actively worshiping God. And they tie it to Melchizedek, who was a priest in the Old Testament. And Melchizedek blessed God's people with bread and wine, which they connect to Passover. And then as a way to accept God's blessing and as a way to receive God's blessing, Melchizedek gave 10% to God. And so Melchizedek represents Christ, and it's a lot more complicated than this. I'm sort of giving you the rough draft, but Christ gave us the Passover, and so then as a way for us to receive God's blessing, we have to give our 10% back to God. So like 10% already belongs to God, and so we need to give it as a show of our mind and our faithfulness and of our thankfulness of receiving God's blessing. We need to give 10% back to God. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I want to be honest, Lindsay, by talking. Okay, because you know how I keep saying holy. Like I know you guys are probably, but because we were so indoctrinated that it was so holy, like I'm having this reaction, like this panic reaction within myself right now that I feel almost
Like flustered. I can
yeah,
see you feeling flustered right now talking about this. It's
I feel
okay.
like I feel like it's, and I hate that I still have this, but I sort of feel like it's wrong to talk about this publicly. Like I feel a little bit shameful airing this out. Like there's still a little piece of me that feels like I need to protect them in this way, and I don't understand it. And I just want to be honest about that. Like, I could try to hide that from everybody, but I'm being honest. Like this is a real, because this is a very, very deep study that you do, and a very it's something that's taught continuously, and it's something that you do faithfully.
And I feel like there's a lot of cognitive dissonance that would have to happen to be able to get to this point at the church where you're separating your old self from like this new cult identity, allowing yourself to sacrifice so much and really put yourself in a bad position and hold the church over like what's best for you and your family financially.
Right. And they use this verse in the Bible that talks about wherever your heart is, there your mind will also be, something like that. Jesus says it in the New Testament. And so they talk about like whatever we put our money towards, that's where our heart and mind will be. So, like, if we're using it towards God, then our heart and mind will be with God. If we're using it towards worldly things, then our heart and mind will be with worldly things. Do you want to have your mind on worldly things? Do you want to be a sinner and go to hell? No. So then that means you need to give your money towards God and towards the gospel work. So there's two different ways that people give their money to this cult, and that is through tithe and offering, which is a major way. And that is where it's really seen as holy. And then another way that they do it is through like gospel work and through like church activity and things like that. Cooking is a big one. But the tithe and offering is seen as so holy. And I want to talk about how you talked about cognitive dissonance, because that happened to me and that sort of helped me, because we were taught that it's so holy. And the most faithful members, okay, so we have to put our tithe and offering into the envelopes, into these flat envelopes, and they're presented in these beautiful baskets. And then these baskets are gathered by these faithful members during the service time while you're singing the new songs. And it's a very holy time of the service. And these beautiful sisters are, they're clean and they have the best suits. They're the good examples, the good members. And they take these beautiful offerings to God and they put them up on the altar during service. They're the only ones up allowed on the altar besides pastor, right?
Logos.
So they offer it, okay? They offer this holy offering to God. And so that's what we were taught, that it was holy. And so, like, members who quote unquote have really strong faith, and the only way that I know this is because I was a church leader in the house church. So I would be able to open the offerings. And it was also something that I have done a few times. Members would, first of all, when they go to the bank to prepare their tithe and offering, they would go and they would request brand new dollars from the bank, like fresh, brand new printed dollars. And some members would get them like months in advance. They would get like $100 bills, and they would just have them like for the whole amount of time. Other members would iron the money and make it like so clean and so beautiful, and they would iron it. Other times they would also spray it with perfume to make it seem really beautiful. So they didn't see it as money. They saw it as a holy material, and so did I. And so when I was in the house church and I would gather the money, because I would be the one in the office, I would lock the door and I would pray before I would open the tithe and offerings, and then I would take it out and I would treat it as so holy, because that's what we were taught. And you keep track of it. It's not seen as money, it's seen as a material until you take it to the bank, and it's a very stressful thing. Then I go to Denver for one of the feasts, and I open the church office because I'm allowed in the church office. Only certain members are allowed in the church office, because you understand, because there's sensitive information in there, and there's money in there, a lot of money. And they had all the offering and all the money just like strewn about the table. And they were all like frenzied, like going through and gathering up the money. And I'm sure in their defense, I'm sure they were like just in a hurry and everything. But the way that they were all just like reaching in and like grabbing, and it was very aggressive. And it was totally different than what I had been taught and what I had been doing in my house church. And then I come to Denver and I see them acting this way over a big pile of money. And it just felt like it gave me a bad taste in my mouth, and it made me feel like, what is happening? Like that to me, like that's a cognitive dissonance that I experienced. Do you think that would be a good example?
Like your brain almost wanted you to be like, wait, this isn't okay. And then you stopped yourself because you're like, it's fine. It's fine. It's just different here. They just handle it different. It's fine. I'm sure there's a reason for it. You even said it in your explanation. I'm sure there was an explanation for it. You already explained your cognitive dissonance in it. Like it's in the story as you tell it. It's so interesting.
Right.
This is interesting, Toni. I haven't seen you. We've gotten so much further into the podcast that this is the first time I've seen you flustered about a topic in a while.
Isn't that interesting? I'm feeling it too. So that's very interesting. Like I said, this is something that's indoctrinated into you from the very beginning. So this is something that I personally took very serious. So we ended up giving a lot of money over time. That ends up happening. But I want people to understand how people get to that point. So what we do is we give tithe and offering 3 times a day on Sabbath. Okay, and so we're going to get into all of that. I do want to talk about.
Just for clarification, is each one supposed to, at the end of the Sabbath day, that totals the 10% for the week?
Okay, let's just get into it. Can I just go over all the finances now? Is that okay?
Yeah. Oh, you go however you want. Yeah.
Okay. We're just going to air out all my dirty laundry, okay, guys? We're just going to put it all out here. And to be honest, it's a little bit embarrassing because talking about money is never easy, and talking about your personal finances is never easy. But I want to do it because I feel like by me saying it, it's going to make other people feel better about it. So I'll sacrifice myself out for the greater good, okay? Okay. So let me explain how it works. There's 3 services. You need to give 10% of your income. If you get paid once a month, you give 10% in whatever form that is. Some people, and as long as you tithe once a month, that's fine. So you have a tithing envelope, and then a Zion offering, and then regular offering. But offering needs to be done every service, 3 services. So if you got paid once a week, then you would tithe once a week. If you got paid, every other week, then you would tithe every other week. So then you would have feasts. So there's 7 feasts 3 times a year. And so you would give 7 times a year a special offering. So people save up like a lot of extra money to give that. So like especially Passover, a Day of Atonement, you would give a bigger chunk of money. So I guess I'm just gonna like break it down. Does that sound good? Just for tithe and offerings, about what we would spend in tithe and offerings and sort of how it looks.
Like your family would?
Yeah, my family. Okay. All right. So I would get about $100 a week for babysitting. And so every week from that $100, I would put $10 to my tithe envelope. Then my husband was making about, okay, this is all very general because this was a long time ago, but I do remember that I made $100 a week because that was very special to me, and every little penny was counted. My husband was making about $1,000 a week. So then that would be about $100 of his money a week. So we were giving about $110 a week for tithe. Okay. Then our children would do $5 a week. So that would be another $10 a week for tithe. And then we would do offerings. So say I would usually just do like $1 a service for each of us. So then it would be $3 a service times 3 times a day. So that would be about $9 more. So it ended up being about $130 $30 per week that we would give in tithe, just in tithe and offerings. And then monthly, you do like a Zion offering, and they tell you that this goes to all the churches all over the world. And this is also like written down and kept track of. This is a whole separate envelope, and you do that monthly. So we would give about $10 a month, and then our children would do about $5 a month. So that would be like another $20 a month. So per month, we would spend, calculated, about $520 a month just for tithe and offerings. And then the feasts, like I said, so the feast would be 2 services that you give offerings, so morning and afternoon. So that's broken into, 3 or 4 people. Usually we would give about, $100 for Passover. So I would say we would spend about an extra $300 or $400 a year on offerings for those feasts. So when you calculate it all up, we figured it was about $6,700 a year just for tithe and offerings, service times.
And don't forget that this is based off of one actual full income and then a babysitting side job. Holy shit.
But see, when you look at it, you can kind of see the 10% of our income, like that is almost about 10% of about what we were making, probably about that much.
Bitch, you know how many times you could have gone to Disney?
I know, right? Just with that. Okay. Then after that, there's money for other things. Okay. So we usually spend about $80 a month on cooking. And that's when you'll have like groups. And so members would gather money and, put it all together and then go shopping. Sometimes members don't pay you back. So then, it's very stressful. And then you just kind of have to eat it up. Okay. So then that's some money and there. And then you usually do about $20 a week. They would call it a dedication, an extra $20 that you would give to like your group leader or unit leader. And then you would use that for your church work. So that would be about $100 a month there that we would use for like extra projects. So we would, use our own money for things like trips to Hobby Lobby, which we would do all the time. We were constantly doing like arts and crafts and things at Home Depot and Dollar Tree. And we were taking care of our computer maintenance and we were buying the ink for the printers. Like all of these things we were buying and we were providing for. So all those things add up. We also would, have to use our own gas for preaching times and just random things. Like it would be seen as a blessing to treat members. So like if you were out and about, you want to like treat members to like a nice lunch or something like that. Like that would always be seen as a blessing. And if you like wanted to ask for money for something, it was kind of like, I don't know, it kind of made you feel bad. So you just wanted to do it yourself. So for that, when we added all of that up, you guys, between the tithe and offering.
I have one more thing to add that I feel like maybe you guys didn't add in there. You guys calculate physical labor that your husband put in? Because if you calculate even a minimum wage payment to the amount of hours that he worked at the church doing things, I mean, that's probably another chunk of money right there.
Right. That's something that hurts my heart so much is the amount of time and labor that's lost in there and talent. Like you said, my husband would work a full-time job and then come home and then have to do, 6 or 7 more hours of construction work or preaching work or gospel work. And same with us, like we would be constantly cleaning and cooking, and all of that is like manual labor, painting, watching the children. It was almost like they were teachers. They were like training themselves to be teachers, and they really love the children, and so they would invest time and energy into, making sure the children had a good curriculum. Like, do you know what I mean? Like the children's teachers really put a lot of time and a lot of effort. So there's so many different ways that people's talents and time and money is being manipulated. And that's something that really, really makes me angry.
Yeah.
So between the tithe and offering and all that, we calculated it's about $8,000 a year that we would spend to the church. So if we had, so we were in there total about 14 years, but say we had 10 faithful years where we were totally doing our tithe and offering, which I would say that's about right. I would say roughly $80,000 to $100,000 is probably a good estimate. And I have to add that we were living in poverty. Okay, we were living in poverty. So we were receiving food stamps, we were receiving, all kinds of help, and we didn't mind because we had the kind of mindset like we don't care about the world, we don't care about worldly things, we only need enough to survive. And that's something that I want to say really sort of drew me to the church. Like that's something that I liked about the church is that they were like, I think I was already naturally like not materialistic. Like I
Right.
don't care about like having a fancy nice car, having a fancy nice house. I don't really care about that. I care more about like having a nice vacation or having a nice memory or something like that.
Right.
So that's something that was very attractive to me.
Right. But
However,
there's a difference. Yeah, there's a difference between having a nice fancy car for no reason and a car that will turn on when you turn the key into it. And poverty adds such a freaking struggle to
I was
everyday
thinking
life.
I was thinking about this. I was thinking that there's a difference between choosing not to be materialistic, that I didn't want to be right, and being forced into poverty and coerced into poverty. Like I didn't choose to be poor, but because of the lifestyle, I was naturally like, I quit college. So I didn't finish my degree. So how much did I lose in my future because of that? And then, I didn't work. I had a babysitting job so that I could do the gospel work, so that I could focus more on preaching. And I hear endless stories of people who quit their education and quit their good paying jobs because in order to keep the feast, in order to go preaching, oh, I forgot about the seminars, you guys. I totally forgot about the seminars. I need to add that in. Seminars, you have to pay for seminars. Seminars are probably about $200 or $300, and they would be, sometimes a week, sometimes a few days. But you would have to get time off work to go to the seminars, and then you have to pay for the seminar. So you have to pay a few $100s for the seminar
How often are they?
every few months.
Oh
So
yeah,
it's
I
not
definitely
easy.
spent at least $100,000 because
It's
if
not
you're
easy to keep a good job there.
yeah. Yeah, and like even if you have an okay job, I can't imagine that it's easy to like you know, build your career forward or do put your energy anywhere else other than in the church.
But there's no need to. If the world's ending, there's no need to. It goes with that apocalyptic beliefs, right? So seminars are another expense. But the thing is the seminars, you just come to the church and you just stay in the church. So they say that the money is for the food. Okay. And then there's also short-term preaching trips. And short-term preaching trips would also be probably $300 or $400 to pay for the gas and everything. And then those would also be week-long trips. And then you also have to buy their church material. So they have a bookstore, and there you would buy books. New books come out continuously, and a lot of times it's the same material written in a new book cover, but it's like the same sermons over and over and over again, just compiled in different things. They have CDs, they have their own magazines that they publish. So they have their own like publishing company in Korea. So they have their own magazines that you read once a month that you have to buy from the church. And you sometimes have to buy vests or shirts when like you do the cleanups and stuff. You have to buy those. All those
So
things. So
that's a weird.
mhm,
I didn't know that. Like when you go on the humanitarian
yeah.
aid
Mhm.
trips.
So I have several like cleanup vests, and I don't want to throw them away because they were expensive and I had to buy them, but they have like the church name all over them. I don't know what to do with them, but they're good quality.
I know what to do with them.
Okay, do not say.
The ideas.
Another thing that I do want to mention, okay, is that if you receive a gift from your family, then you would tithe that also. So, like around quote unquote, like around the holiday Christmas time, people will give you money. And you're allowed to take the money, which is so funny now thinking about it. You're allowed to take the money. You just have to make sure that you tithe it. And so they will tithe that. Some people will tithe their gift cards. So say you get a gift card. I don't think that I ever did that. Honestly, I don't think that I ever did that. Like if you get a gift card to like Starbucks, some people would tithe that, or maybe like use it towards the church. Some people will tithe their food stamps, or use their food stamps towards cooking for the church. Um, so all of these kinds of things are happening.
So when mom was worried that you would sign the house over to the church, she kind of had a point.
Okay.
And at the
My
time, I was like, that's so extreme. But now that I hear all this, I'm like, yeah, actually, that's a good idea, Mom.
I have heard stories of people who have sold their houses and given their money to the church. Um, I've heard stories. I can't say exactly or that I know any specifics. Um, my family did not understand at all, especially my mom. I love you, Mom. My mom always had my back, she really did. And my mom was always like, "Why are you giving so much money?" She really knew how, she kind of had an idea. I don't think she knows exactly, but she was very angry about that, and she was very worried that I would do something drastic. She was always worried that I was going to do something drastic like that. But I do have to say that there were two kinds of people in my life. Like if I received a gift of money, a monetary gift, there were people that would say, "Don't you dare give this to the church, Toni. Don't you dare give this to the church." In my mind, I'm like, I'm going to tithe this. 100% I'm going to tithe this. Then there were people who would give me money and then they would say nothing about the church. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to tithe this. But on the other hand, they would say, "I want you to use this and I want you to treat yourself." And honestly, when they would say something like that, I just wanted to cry because nobody ever said that to me. Nobody, you're never allowed to take money for yourself and like go treat yourself to a nice lunch or like, go buy a new pair of shoes or like, whatever it is, go buy a new book or whatever. You're never allowed that freedom. So when like at the end of the year when I would get money, like after I would tithe it, I would be so relieved and so excited to like, go get a fancy dinner or just something, go get a fancy drink or something like that, a boba. And so that was something that I kind of always looked forward to. And so I do want to say this to family members out there that are listening. I know there are family members that are listening. And like, I know that it infuriates you that if you give money to your family, that they're going to give it to the church. I know that that's infuriating, but I ask you to be patient and I ask you to still give the money to them. Most of them are living in poverty. And so, like, that extra little bit of money does help. And I remember so many times we were behind on our Excel bill. We would be behind on bills. We would be behind on things. And um,
I'm kind of conflicted with that advice, though, Toni. Still, 10% of it is going to the freaking church to like keep this rat race going.
let me offer something else. I
As a family
understand.
member, I'm devil advocating on a family member side. Like,
Right.
I don't want to freaking give it to anyone.
Okay. Let me give you a recommendation. Maybe instead of giving cash, you could give a gift card because I don't know that members always tithe gift cards. But you could do it in a way, or you could take them grocery shopping. I remember my mother-in-law used to take us grocery shopping, and that was like, oh, such a relief. Um, instead, instead, you could maybe offer to pay a bill, like, oh, for your gift, I'm gonna pay your electricity bill this month, or something like that, because then the money's not going to the church, but you're still helping them. Do you know what I mean? Maybe you could do something like that.
That's better advice. I don't know. As a family member, I still feel the resentment of that idea of handing over money and saying, they're still going to use 90% of it for themselves. I mean, I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying, but we're coming from two different points of view. So
I get it too. I understand now that I'm thinking about it because then you're saying 10% is still going to the church and is still feeding the monster. So let's not do that.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
as a former member, I just remember like having that money and just being so thankful. Like my family really like that's something that you remember. Your family always has your back. And so when the family would still show up for me and still provide for me in these certain ways, because the church is not providing for you. The church is not helping you in a physical way at all. So when your family is there backing you up, it does stay with you. Do you know what I mean?
There's a difference between conditional and unconditional love.
Yes, and you do start to feel that in as part of the finances. So I just want to say one more quick story because I do remember this, and I do want to talk about a story and about how even though you don't really feel bad about living in poverty, you don't feel bad about not having money, you don't feel bad about not having a nice car. I didn't feel bad about not having, the nicest, newest things. I really didn't care. Even to this day, I really don't care. None of that stuff really matters to me. However, there is a part of you that gets embarrassed, you know. So I remember I saw one of my best friends, one of my old roommates, her name is Annie, and we were best friends from high school. And I saw her at Walmart one morning, and I went early in the morning so that I wouldn't see anybody that I know, of course. And I'm all shambled and I'm all, frazzled and sleep deprived and just at my lowest. I was really at my lowest. I had my baby. I just had my second baby, and I had my WIC checks, and I was paying with my WIC checks. And at that time, you literally had to like get out that big old check and you had to sign it. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And they had to go through like each individual thing. Now they have it in a
So
card, and
embarrassing.
yeah, it's so embarrassing. But anyway, I saw
Get
her.
like exactly what is on the list, and that means
Yes.
ounces, brand.
Yes, and they have to go through every little thing. And I was so thankful for the help at the time, and I loved going to get my WIC stuff because it was so helpful. I could feed my family. But I ran into her and she walked by, and I was like, I really want to say hi to her, and I did, and I stopped her and I talked to her. And she said, and I hadn't seen her probably in 10 years. And she is somebody that I just sort of abandoned, sort of like Kelly, I abandoned her. And she was like, "You look very tired," she told me. And I was like, "I really am tired, but it's really, really good to see you." But I just remember being so not embarrassed, like humiliated. I remember feeling humiliated because I knew that like she was really successful in her life, and she looked really good, and like she seemed really happy, and I knew that she had a house. And so in that way I was embarrassed because I didn't have a house. I didn't really have anything, and there I was signing my WIC checks. And so in that moment I was embarrassed. So it is embarrassing, from in some ways. I also heard another story about a member, and we don't want to talk about their name, but they went into extreme debt. So not just the regular like giving the money. This is like debt on top of all the money that was already given. This person went into $30,000 debt. $30,000, and this was used for orchestra instruments.
I don't know who we would be talking about.
This was used for musical instruments, for tools for the main church, and tools for the house churches, and work and gospel work for the house churches. $30,000.
To that person.
Congratulations.
Paid it off, baby. He's done.
Worked his ass off. I mean, worked his ass off and got shamed for working so hard and shamed for wanting to make himself better and go to school. And just it's so sad, but he kicked ass and he paid it off. So I'm really, really proud. And this is just one story of somebody who went into, I mean, that's a lot of money. $30,000 is a lot of money to just be left with. It's just like you're just expected to pay all this stuff, and then they're just like, "See you later."
I don't think
Take it all on.
I don't think I've had a discussion with an ex-member at this point who hasn't, the financial aspect of this church hasn't been devastating to them in some way, right? Like it has caused a lot of damage for people's individual lives, and I think that's one of the big reasons why this place bothers me.
Think about your life. Financial stability is so important. And so I think for me and my husband, we were very discouraged coming out because we were in our late 30s and we're like starting over. We feel like we're in our 20s, like starting our careers, buying a house. It's like we just feel so behind financially. And I know a lot of members feel like that. But we cannot be discouraged. We just have to keep going, keep going, keep going. Because since coming out of the church, we bought 2 houses. I mean, our financial situation has gotten exponentially so much better. And I can, afford. I remember one time, really quick story. I remember one time mom was just like giving me such a hard time because I couldn't afford to buy milk. And she was just so upset about it. And she could see that I was giving so much money to the church, but I couldn't afford groceries. And she could see it, but I couldn't. And it must have been so frustrating for her. So sorry, Mom.
Yeah.
Love you.
Yeah. I'm thankful that at the time that you were in there that I was also poor, because I never gave you money.
Right.
I was never in a position to like be somebody that you'd ever ask for money. So that was kind of a good thing for me.
Well, I asked you for money one time for the rent.
Right. So I guess what happened was I just learned my lesson early, and
Right.
Like, no, you can't borrow money from me because I need it just as bad as you do, woman.
Well, after some time, families catch on. So members don't want to ask the families for money because they know that, it's going to go to the church. So maybe find other creative ways to help out the family members without directly giving
I
cash.
thought you were gonna say, so maybe find out other creative ways to ask family members for money.
No.
What I thought you were gonna say. I was like,
No,
you're,
to
you're
to
to
provide support to family members without giving them cash. It reminds me of like a drug addict. Like you never want to give a drug addict cash because then they can go buy drugs. But
right,
instead, you can buy them groceries, you can buy them their shoes that they need or whatever it is, just not providing them with cash or anything valuable that they can sell.
right, to sell or give over as a gift,
Yeah.
right? Because did you guys do that? Did you like give precious things as a gift, or no?
I mean, we can talk about that if you would like. One more quick little thing that we would sometimes do is we would send precious, valuable gifts over on trips to Korea. And one other quick expense that happens when you're there is that a lot of members they visit Korea, and this is one thing that is actually affordable. So what you would do is you would purchase a ticket to Korea. So at that time it was, I don't know, 1,500, between 1,500 $2,000, and that would pay for your whole entire trip to Korea. 10 days stay in Korea, all your food is taken care of, all of, wherever you stay in these really nice resorts. I mean, you can tell that there's a lot of money out there. They take care of everything, your transportation. You don't have to worry about anything. You're constantly with them in the church grounds. And financially, you don't have to worry about anything. So that is one thing that's actually affordable, that you get to go on a 10-day trip to Korea for that amount of money. However much a plane ticket costs, then that's what you would pay. But when they go on these trips to Korea, they go to visit God, who they believe is God. So they want to present her with gifts. So a lot of times money would be gathered. There's maybe, when I was in there, there was like 2 or 3 trips a year. But there's always at least one big trip a year that the pastor would go to, and then they would gather money and they would buy gifts for her, and gifts that would be given, letters that would be given to her. Sometimes, really fine jewelry was bought, fine handbags. I mean, because they believe that she is God. So it's not like they're going to Walmart to buy her a gift. Like they're going to like Cartier, or like um, they're going to what's the Coach, something like that, to buy her a gift. So things like that are happening.
I'm God. You think I need a Coach purse? Like,
Right, right. And they do say that, like, she doesn't need it, but it's like our mind to God. It's like a way to show our mind to God. If Jesus was here, like they use that example of Jesus was here and the woman poured the fine oil on his feet. Like it
mm,
was really expensive oil, even though she was so poor. So even though we were living in poverty, we were to like show our thankful mind to God. And so when you go to Korea, they have a museum there where you can go and you see all these beautiful gifts from all over the world. I mean, there's rooms full of gifts that are given to her from Africa, from India, from Europe, from all over the world, that you can see, and like tokens of their countries and their love towards her. So we actually have a special sponsor
yeah.
for a trip to Korea. So you guys stay tuned.
Stay tuned for that, and we'll see you guys next time.
We'll see you next time. We have a special guest coming up, so can't wait.
We do. We have so much cool people coming on, actually.
Yeah, I cannot wait. It's going to be exciting.
We have like a phenomenal few
Yeah,
episodes.
but stay tuned. We have a really special sponsor.
Stay tuned for our new sponsor. Meow, 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 meow. This noise is for Evan. Meow. 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 Meow.
You are
Meow.
so annoying.